I see two different parts here. One part is, can you ID the conclusion? Then the other part is what is happening for you with the tempting wrong answer and the discouraging right answer. So, two separate things. With the conclusion, that's step one, I think. Properly identify the conclusion. There are certain key indicator words to be aware of, to be on the lookout for. One of them we covered tonight was the word clearly. I think it was in question 24 with Activite. So look for your indicator words. I have lists of them as well. You can email me. I'll send you a list. And those indicator words are really valuable to have in your wheelhouse because they're like a cheat sheet of sorts. If you know the indicator words, that's like the language of the LSAT. There are not always indicator words though. If there's no conclusion indicator, maybe though, there is an evidence indicator. And so if the evidence indicator is giving you the evidence, then the other part, whatever it is fairly likely to be the conclusion, unless it's filler. Now, if there are no indicator words at all, then you actually have to think a little bit, how do these two different parts relate? How do the different sentences or clauses or phrases in the stimulus relate to each other? Which part is supporting the other, or which part is causing the other, depending on the situation? So you have to engage a little bit. And most questions on the LSAT logical reasoning are informal logic, where you're not diagramming anything, it's not symbolic. You want to treat it like you're having a conversation with somebody and you're pointing out why they're dumb. You're pointing out the gaps or flaws in their reasoning, or at least how they might be vulnerable in some way. And so try to have that real world relatability with it, and that'll help you better evaluate what is ultimately their conclusion. Another thing you could ask yourself is, if they could only keep one piece of this stimulus, which piece would they keep? What is their agenda, and what are they trying to get across? It's the same as in LSAT reading comprehension. What's the author's opinion? What's the author's main point? Same exact thing. If they could only tell you one thing, what would they be telling you? Then the other part of your question about the down to two choices, this is a super classic question I get all the time. I'm down to two, and I always pick the wrong one. I hear this all the time. And it's funny because, I mean, you're probably not getting it wrong all the time because you're getting it right sometimes and you're not focusing on those, right? The ones you guessed right on, you simply likely move on because you feel good about those. You're noticing what you got wrong. And so I want to actually encourage you, also look at the ones where you guessed and got lucky, because it just as easily could have gone the other way the next time around. But you want to see, as part of your review process, when you're picking the wrong one, what seemed appealing about it to you, and what seemed discouraging or unappealing about the right answer. A lot of times, the tempting wrong answer will be half right and half wrong, where there will be one little word in the choice that makes it wrong, or the last word of the choice makes it wrong. It's almost as if they write 5 correct answers and then tweak 4 of them to make it wrong by adding one little word or making it a little bit extreme in some way. Like when they should have said some, they said most, or they said probably when it should have been maybe. But changing one little word, whether it's a quantity-related word like most versus some, or a qualifier like all people in general versus all people who take the LSAT. All people who take the LSAT is limiting the scope of who they're talking about, narrowing it, making it less of an extreme claim and more of a reasonable claim. And so you want to look at all those little things they're doing to overgeneralize and extremify their statement to make it invalid in some way. And like I said, there are patterns in how they do that, and you want to see which words you are not currently looking out for that you should be looking out for. And if you found those, you would avoid falling for those traps in the future. But that's all about the review process. And so, at least for the toughest ones, write it out, talk it out, start thinking about it on a deeper level, not just seeing, I get it now after watching an explanation or reading one or looking at the answer key. Because it's too easy to do that, because the review process is really the toughest, most grueling part of all, but that's where the gains come from.